often disappointing. That is, it was.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Combat Meter. We're back in round 2 of our Thanos versus the Avengers, and we are going to see if in this round the Avengers actually stood a chance against Thanos. What we saw in round 1, where it was just one-on-one Thanos versus the Hulk, link right here if you want to take a look at that video. We discovered that the Hulk didn't really stand much of a chance. In fact, the way that they have portrayed Thanos and the Hulk in the MCU, it looks like that fight went about as it should have. So we're going to see if round 2 is any more or less legit than round 1 was. So round 2 takes place on the planet called Knowhere. It's not really a planet so much as a giant floating head in space, because comics. Here we have Peter Quill, better known as Star-Lord, along with Gamora, sometimes known as the daughter of Thanos, Drax, occasionally called the Destroyer, and Mantis, the other one. And the 4 of them have come here to try to get the Reality Stone before Thanos gets there. Unfortunately, Thanos beat him there, and what could be called a battle ensues. It isn't really much of a battle. Very little fighting actually takes place, but we're going to run it through the meter and see if those 4 stood a chance against Thanos in this round. If you want to see what sort of criteria we're looking for in the combat meter, you can see right here how the meter works. And we have to make a small rule adjustment in this case because this is not a one-on-one fight. This is a group against one. So what does that mean? That means that your stats actually stack up and get pulled down together. Think of it this way. If there's a large piece of furniture and 4 people are trying to lift it, all of their strength adds to lifting it, meaning that theoretically you could combine their strength. However, if one person is quite a bit stronger than another, that means that someone on their corner isn't holding up doing as much work, so that might actually drag the whole feat down. So what we're going to be looking here is with each one of these stats, be it strength, agility, healing factor, what have you, that it's likely that one person will outshine the rest in that area, meaning that the rest of the group is going to be relying more heavily on that one individual for that one area of the fight, be it their physical strength or their intelligence or what have you. That means we're going to be averaging the scores out, but whoever has the highest score in that particular area is going to be factored heavier than the rest. That being said, let's get this battle underway. Now, the last time when we looked at strength, we were looking at 2 of the strongest brutes the MCU had to offer, and we ended up assigning Thanos 5.75 points for his strength. Now, his physical strength hasn't actually changed from one round to the next. He's still as physically powerful as he was before, so his score is going to stay the same. When it comes to the physical strength for the 4 Guardians of the Galaxy that he's fighting here, we're going to see a little bit of an interesting exchange. Peter Quill in and of himself is in really phenomenal shape. He doesn't perform that many strength feats, though he is able to toe-to-toe with a lot of these Kree guards. And the Kree in the MCU do appear to be stronger than humans, some being in a really high strength class, while some seeming to be just better versions of people. While it doesn't look like Star-Lord is going to be a powerlifter anytime soon, we can at least give him 2 points for having highly athletic human strength. Gamora, on the other hand, has some pretty impressive strength feats. There's several instances of her lifting exceptionally heavy items, as well as holding on tight to people that really she should have lost her grip on. It's clear that what she's doing is beyond a human's capability, and also seems to be part of her genetic makeup, meaning that that enhanced strength that she's demonstrating is sustainable. Now, she doesn't perform a feat anywhere close to the 35 tons lifting range she'd have to get a full 5 points, so we can safely give her 4.5 points for sustained enhanced strength. Drax is right there with her in the same class, performing physical strength feats that are well above what a human can do, and being able to do it consistently.
Finger to the throat means death.
However, when we compare him to Gamora, it looks like he actually has a slight edge in the strength department. You can see in their confrontation here, he's able to hold her at bay pretty effectively while she struggles against him. Meaning we're going to give him the slightest of edges and give him 4.6 points for his strength. Mantis is not really much of a physical combatant. She actually doesn't demonstrate a level of strength any more than what you might see from an average human.
I never thought she'd be able to do it, with as weak and skinny as she appears to be.
And we have no reason to believe that the MCU version of her is any stronger than that. So with that being said, she'll get 1 point. So averaging those scores out, but weighing a little heavier on Drax, knowing that they're going to be relying on his strength in a fight like this, they're going to get a collective score of 4.18, meaning that as a group, they have enhanced strength. Once again, Thanos' speed is actually not really a factor here. Someone had pointed out to me that with the Space Stone, he has the ability to teleport, and that should have some sort of an effect on his physical speed, but we're going to actually save that for a later portion. As far as his actual physical speed on the battlefield, he'll still get the 5 points that he had before for having superhuman speed. That is the ability to reach the speed of sound. Star-Lord actually doesn't physically demonstrate anything beyond a standard human's performance in terms of his actual physical speed, but he does have one thing going for him, and it's his rocket boosters. In this scene here, we actually see Star-Lord use his rocket boots to travel approximately the length of a football field in about 2 seconds. This means that he's traveling just over 100 miles an hour. That suggests that Star-Lord is capable of enhanced speed. He's not using the rocket boots constantly. Also, I'm assuming that there's some sort of a fuel supply there. Plus, being a technological thing, they can be damaged or wear out, so we can't say that his enhanced speed is sustainable. But we can give him 4 points for his enhanced speed. Gamora actually demonstrates having quite a bit of foot speed, as you can see here as she's running from a gunship. These bullets are straight up missing her. Now, that could be because Gamora is really fast, or it could be because Nebula's a bad shot, or doesn't really want her dead.
Are you kidding me?
They have a complicated relationship. In either event, she covers a very good distance very fast, to the point where it is safe to say that she is going as fast as a human being can reasonably go. And you know, that never ever really seems to slow down. It's really hard to tire her out. So this suggests to me that it's safe to give her 3.5 points for having sustained top human speed. Drax, he's right there too. It seems like for the most part he's sort of a lumbering brute, but when he starts leaping, which he does frequently, he can cover a massive amount of distance really fast. And the distance that he's covering, in the time he's covering it, has him moving at roughly 20 to 30 miles per hour, which puts him just above top human speed. And it looks like he can keep that up. It's not really a difficult feat for him. So we can give him 3.5 points for sustained top human speed. Mantis is the surprising one here. If you look here at the opening of the big battle at the end of Endgame, you can see Mantis right at the front line, sprinting in this fight, able to keep up with the likes of Captain America and Black Panther and the Hulk, all of whom we've established are really, really fast characters. Now, that burst of speed that she shows is the only time she demonstrates speed like that. So I have no reason to believe that she could do that on a consistent basis. But still, that's super impressive. And we already know that Captain America and other super soldier-like characters can move well above what the standard Olympic athlete can do. So I feel very safe giving Mantis 3 points for having top human speed, though she likely isn't able to sustain it. Averaging those things out and weighing Star-Lord's speed a little heavier, knowing that they'd be relying on that in the fight, that'll give them a combined score of 4.5 points, suggesting that as a group they have sustained enhanced speed. And that adds up. If one of their speed starts failing, the other should be able to kick it into gear and keep going. Thanos last time was awarded 5.75 points for his agility, and that's going to remain this time around. Star-Lord is amazingly agile. He has the ability to see incoming threats and dodge them really consistently. In some cases, this could be upgrades that are happening in his mask, giving him additional perception, but even without the mask, he seems very capable of getting out of the way of things. He also has exceptional hand-eye coordination, consistently being able to throw items exactly where they need to be. You can see here that his agility was so high, he even had the ability to keep up with the likes of Iron Man and Spider-Man, whose agility is through the roof. And no matter how beat up or tired he gets, he always seems to be able to plant something at the right place at the right time to make something happen for him. So he's going to get 3.5 points for sustained top human agility. Gamora seems to be right there with him, able to dodge consistently, able to perceive things happening pretty quickly and deal with them, as well as also demonstrating a really high hand-eye coordination. When it comes between her and Star-Lord, she always seems to get the edge on him in terms of agility, always being a slight step ahead of him. And even though he can get the one-up on her now and then,
Fool. Should have learned.
I don't learn. One of my issues.
she usually comes out on top in those little confrontations. So we're going to give her a slight edge over him at 3.6 points for her agility. Drax is surprisingly agile for a big muscle-bound guy, much like the Hulk was. He does still lumber a bit. He's big and he's muscly, and he doesn't quite have the flexibility that some of the other characters have. So he takes his share of hits. Even if he perceives the incoming attack, he can't always get out of the way or do anything about it. You can see in his fight with Ronan that Ronan is quite a bit more agile than he is, even wearing that heavy armor. I can't take all of that fight at its face value though, because he was also inebriated during that time, so he's not at his peak performance. But you can see him regularly taking out multiple opponents at once. But he doesn't seem to have near the agility of either Star-Lord or Gamora. So we can give him 3 points for having at least what we would consider top human agility.
Nothing goes over my head. My reflexes are too fast. I would catch it.
Mantis, well,
Mantis! Look out!
she doesn't really demonstrate that she's all that agile. She actually doesn't get into fights very much. The only real test of her agility happened here in a later fight with Thanos, where she falls through the portal and lands on him. Sticking that landing was probably pretty hard, but I don't know that it's any harder than what a fit human being could do, especially considering that Doctor Strange was kind of guiding her fall. So we'll give her 1.5 points for having fit human agility. So relying more heavily on Gamora's agility in this battle, they're going to get a combined score of 3.8. So as a group, they can say that they have sustained top human agility, really close to being enhanced as a group. Last time around, we awarded Thanos 4.5 points for intelligence. And despite the fact that he's always learning, it's safe to say that his millennia of knowledge wasn't really bolstered much by any recent events. So we'll keep him at his 4.5 points for intelligence. Now, a lot of people criticize Star-Lord for his lack of intelligence because he's a bit of a goofball and a slacker.
You're from Earth.
I'm not from Earth, I'm from Missouri.
Yeah, that's on Earth, dip. What are you hassling us for?
But the reality is, he's actually pretty smart.
It's 8 degrees off its axis. Gravitational pull is all over the place.
Aside from being able to work his spaceship and other advanced technologies and understand how they work, he actually demonstrates that he's very knowledgeable of the social customs of various worlds. And he's quite a smooth talker.
I guess I prefer to make people the old-fashioned way.
Well, perhaps someday you could give me a history lesson.
I would be honored, yes, in the name of research.
His problem isn't that he lacks intelligence. His problem is that he lacks emotional control. He's just really, really emotional.
What?
No, all right. I know that sounds bad.
But taking everything into consideration, I think it's fair to say that we can give him 2 points for having above average human intelligence. Even though we want to give credit to Gamora, she's not really any smarter than a lot of the people in her group.
I'm gonna die surrounded by the biggest idiots in the galaxy.
She's usually the voice of reason, but that has a lot more to do with personality than it does actual intelligence. She just as easily finds herself getting pulled into these weird little familial squabbles, and she doesn't really demonstrate that she's any smarter than anyone else around her. Again, the advanced alien technology is something that we have to take into consideration, and she's been around a lot of worlds and seen a lot, so I think we can safely give her also 2 points for having above average human intelligence. Drax is, I don't want to say dumb.
Die, spaceship!
That's not really the right word for it.
Cease your yammering and relieve us from this irksome confinement.
Yeah, I'll have to agree with the walking thesaurus on that one.
Do not ever call me a thesaurus.
A lot of people in the past have pointed out that he's a little on the spectrum. He shows signs of potentially having like an Asperger's syndrome, though it's suggested that all of his people are like this as well.
His people are completely literal. Metaphors are gonna go over his head.
So that's not really indicative of a lack of intelligence. What is indicative of a lack of intelligence are a lot of the dumb decisions he makes, like getting drunk and then calling out Ronan to fight, or often yelling and announcing his presence right before he goes to attack an opponent, or jumping into the mouth of a monster.
What is he doing?
He said the skin is too thick to be pierced from the outside, so
That doesn't make any sense.
I tried telling
Skin
him
is
that!
the same level of thickness from the inside as from the outside.
I realize that!
You kind of have to babysit Drax a little bit. That aside, he's not totally dumb. He has a good heart, he's interestingly philosophical.
There are 2 types of beings in the universe. Those who dance and those who do not. You just need to find a woman who is pathetic. Like you.
And he learns from his mistakes. So while he's probably average, he's on the low side of average, so we're going to give him 0.85 points. Mantis is right around the same area. Surprisingly, she hasn't seen much of the universe. She doesn't know that much. She does get kind of a keen insight through her powers, and that kind of helps her get to know people and know more about them. But it's not clear that she really knows what to do with the information she receives. She's kind of a dope at times too.
Well, then I'm certainly grateful to be ugly.
So she'll also get 0.85 points for her intelligence. So knowing that the group is going to be relying more on Star-Lord and Gamora for their intelligence, collectively they're going to get a 1.93. As a group, they're clever, almost above average. When we looked at healing factors in the last round, Thanos was sitting at 5 points for having Superhuman Healing. So he's going to get to keep those 5 points this time around. Peter Quill has really stupid healing. The amount of damage he recovers from is really quite dumb. Look at the blows. Look at the hits he takes. And he just gets right back up. Human beings don't just get up from that. Nothing seems to be able to keep him down. Now, we did find out that his genetic makeup is half celestial, which makes him like half magic or whatever. So that could be contributing to his recovery time. Regardless, he's definitely recovering at a speed which is considerably higher than what the average human can do. So he'll get 4 points for having enhanced healing. Gamora, right there. Every time she gets hurt, she's basically fully recovered the next time you see her. Any lingering injuries certainly don't seem to be holding her down. So she'll also get 4 points for having enhanced healing. Drax actually heals quite a bit faster than the rest of them. The blows that he takes, he's just shrugging off. Part of it's due to his tough skin, but then the next part of it is due to his amazing recovery time. Right here you see that in order to save his life, Groot punctures his chest all the way through to a lung. But this conversation continues as if he doesn't have a hole in his lung. He gets up, seems a little winded, but the very next scene, he's ready for a fight again. And he doesn't even have a mark from that hole. This guy's recovery speed is phenomenal. So he'll get 5 points for having Superhuman Healing. Mantis, she doesn't get into too many fights like I said before, but to come back from this...
Mantis, look out!
and never get tired of that. To come back from that, at the very least, she would have to have top human healing. I don't know how fast that thing was flying, or how hot it was, or how heavy it was, but it knocked her out cold. Like, normal humans should be dead cold, but small chance of survival. So we'll give her 3 points for having top human healing. Being that they'll be relying on Drax's recovery time will hold him a little higher in this regard, and they'll get a 5.25 and as a group have superhuman healing. Last time around, Thanos had a mind control score of 2 points, meaning that he could predict his enemies' moves. This time around, he has the Reality Stone, and it's fascinating what the Reality Stone does. It can create illusions that literally cover an entire planet. It can bend and warp reality, and while some of it seems to be an illusion, not all of it is. When he makes things disappear or turn into bubbles, those things really happen. And it is so real that in this instance where Gamora thought she had killed Thanos, she really physically felt him there. She thought she had done it. So that's how real the things the Reality Stone can make are. Meaning that that can really screw with a person's head. So he's actually going to get more points this round and actually go from 2 to 4 because he can manipulate his enemy's thoughts. He can't quite get in their head, but he can manipulate what they perceive as real. Star-Lord's using these fast reflexes, and it seems that he is pretty good at predicting what his enemies are going to do. That's how he's always able to stay a step ahead of them and have the right gadget for the right job at the right time. So he'll get 2 points for being able to predict his enemy's moves. Gamora, same deal. Sees what an enemy's going to do, jumps 1 step ahead. Even Drax seems to be able to do this. He's such a good fighter that he actually can perceive what his enemies are going to do and try to jump in and do something about it beforehand. So he too is going to get 2 points for being able to predict his enemy's moves. Now, being able to predict their enemies' moves doesn't mean that they can necessarily do anything about it, but Mantis, on the other hand, goes a step further. Her abilities allow her to actually read her enemy's thoughts.
You feel love.
Yeah, I guess, I feel a general unselfish love for just about everybody.
No. Romantic. Sexual love.
No, I don't.
For her.
No.
Now, it mostly comes out as reading emotions, but it gives her a degree of information that's much higher than what the average person can have. And it goes a step further. She can manipulate those thoughts.
You are scared.
Even creating massive mental suggestion to the point of causing people to fall asleep or wake up. So she's going to get 5 points for being able to cause massive mental suggestion. Yeah, she has to make physical contact with their opponent to do it, but she can do it. This will average out with the team, having them weigh heavily on Mantis' abilities here to give them 4 points, being a team that can collectively manipulate their enemies' thoughts. And you know what? That kind of makes sense in this scenario. Between Star-Lord being a trash talker that gets under his enemy's skin.
Let her go.
Peter.
I'm gonna blow that nutsack of a chin right off your face.
And Gamora having a personal connection to Thanos.
Is that sadness I sense in you, daughter? In my heart, I knew you still cared.
Those two could have an interesting edge here, as well as Mantis' abilities. Even though we see that Thanos is highly resistant to Mantis' abilities compared to other fighters in a later battle.
See under? Don't let up.
Be quick. He is very strong.
We can tell that her mind control powers are still working. That comes out to a score that makes sense in my head here. When it comes to magical knowledge, last time around Thanos got a 2.75 for having a high magical literacy and access to magical items that he wasn't using. This time around, he's definitely using them. The magic items that he's using actually make things happen according to the user's will. All he has to do is close his fist and think. Now, it's not entirely limitless. There do appear to be some limits to what those stones that he has can do, but between them, he can teleport, control objects in space, control the density of those objects, increase his own physical strength, send massive shockwaves of energy, send energy blasts, completely obliterate things, create illusions, warp and bend reality around him. It seems almost limitless, but it's not entirely limitless. But being that it all happens by his will alone, it's pretty safe to say that those abilities he has mastery over. So he's going to get 6 points for magical mastery in this area. Now, Star-Lord is interesting because he would have the passing familiarity that all humans have with magic, but he's also been around cosmic beings and for a moment was a cosmic being.
You shouldn't have killed my mom and squished my Walkman.
And he was given advice from Yondu about how to potentially control this power, but did he really control it better than Ego? Probably not, but he was able to keep him at bay, so there is a level of understanding of magical concepts that he had being connected to this cosmic force. He no longer has that connection, so all those abilities are gone. Would have been really useful here, but I digress. But it's safe to give him 2 points for understanding some magical concepts. Gamora's going to get a slight edge over him and get 2.5 points for having a high magical literacy. She's been seeking the stones for Thanos, seems to know very well what they do and why you should be afraid of them. In particular, she knows the location of the Soul Stone and doesn't want to let Thanos know where it is. She seems to have more magical knowledge than the average person around her. Drax, he has a passing awareness and probably some familiarity. He's been around magic-wielding creatures, even being involved in the battle against Ronan, who was wielding the Power Stone at that time. So we'll give him 1.5 points for having magical familiarity. Mantis spent her life with a Celestial, so she's seen some pretty crazy stuff, and she understands some magical concepts, but there's no indication that she has a high literacy of it herself, so she'll get 2 points as well. In this case, the group is going to be relying a little more heavily on Gamora's magical knowledge, so they're going to average out at a 2.63 for, as a group, having a high magical literacy. Kill response is a little fascinating when it comes to Thanos. Even though he's clearly genocidal, it's amazing how little he kills in his personal confrontations. He really does only kill if he feels it's necessary, either to make a point or to make a persistent enemy go away. In this case, he'd probably be more than happy to kill any of these people, except for Gamora, who he's actively trying to avoid killing because she has knowledge that he wants.
There's something we need to discuss, little one.
In fact, he could go so far as to say that he doesn't even want to hurt her. So we're going to kind of average out his kill response between everybody. That in this instance against Gamora, he's going to actively avoid injuring her, also knowing that he'd fight to win at all costs against Drax and against Mantis, but also knowing that when it comes to Star-Lord, he actually is really demonstrating a high level of cruelty, trying to coax him into killing somebody he loves, seeing if he'll do it. So averaging all that out, he's going to come around to 2.75, making him hover between that area of won't try to kill but won't hold back, and will fight until the opponent submits or dies. That seems a fair assessment of his demeanor in this battle. The Guardians, on the other hand, are definitely out for blood. Quill proves that he's willing to fight to win at all costs, even if that cost is Gamora, the woman he loves. So he's definitely willing to kill Thanos, though it doesn't seem that killing Thanos is a real high priority for him. But I mean, that is kind of what they're here to do. So we'll give him 4 points for fighting to win at all costs. Gamora doesn't even hesitate. She breaks the plan, she jumps right into battle, and she strikes a killing blow first chance she gets, then follows it up with another killing blow first chance she gets. She didn't even hesitate. and it's because she understands that hesitating against Thanos is a mistake. Now, regardless of whether or not this was an illusion, that's what she thought she was doing. Once she realized she no longer had the upper hand, she waited for another opening and went for it. She didn't have as much luck the next time around, but she still went for it. So her mindset right now is going to get her 7 points for being willing to kill without hesitation. Drax has a personal vendetta in this mix, knowing that Thanos is ultimately responsible for the death of his family. And while he does hold back initially, he is actively trying to kill him before he's taken out of the fight. So he'll get 6 points for being actively trying to kill his opponent. Mantis isn't much of a killer, and she doesn't have much taste for it, but when her friends are in danger, she is willing to jump into the fray. In this instance, we'll give her 2.5 points for not trying to kill, but not holding back either. That's going to give the team a combined score of 6.63, leaning heavily on Gamora's desire to kill Thanos, meaning that as a group they are actively trying to kill Thanos and there isn't a lot of hesitation there. Last time around, Thanos had scored a 5 for having some very dangerous advantages. This time around, he's going to score a 7 because he straight up has insurmountable advantages. All those abilities that we talked about before are really stacking up here. When it comes to Star-Lord and what he's bringing to the mix, he's probably going to fall a little short in this area. Thanos is ultimately impressed by Star-Lord.
I like him.
And like we'd said before, with some of his unique gadgets and the fact that he's not a complete bumbling idiot, he can bring a few unique advantages, though he doesn't really deploy many of them in this fight. So he'll get 1 point for having some unique advantages. Gamora was actually trained by Thanos and turned into a living weapon. He's pretty aware of what she's throwing at him. And also being that they share a strong emotional connection because he perceives her very much as his daughter, that does give her 2 points for having several unique advantages. Unfortunately for Drax, he doesn't really have anything to offer this. He's a strong warrior type, very proud and noble. But there's nothing he's throwing at Thanos that Thanos hasn't seen 1,000 times and defeated 1,000 times before. So he's actually going to get a 0 for having no unique advantages. Mantis, on the other hand, clearly demonstrates in a later fight that her abilities do have a strong effect on Thanos. Now, he is actually able to resist them, as you see here. But still, this takes him out of the fight for a good long while. So we're going to give her 4 points for having formidable advantages. Relying heavily on Mantis in this area, the group will get a combined score of 2.75, meaning they have several unique advantages to the point of almost having a few clear advantages. Alright, first time around we gave Thanos a score of 3 for his fighting prowess, meaning he clearly demonstrated that he was a highly trained fighter. And that's going to stay true. Quill is interesting because he doesn't really get into a lot of hand-to-hand scuffles. He's more reliant on his guns, but the gunfighting is a type of fighting. And as we can see, he did receive training all of his life. He practiced, he got good at his craft. So it's clear that in this area he is a trained fighter, and he's had a lot of experience at it, so we're going to give him 2.5 points for being an experienced, trained fighter. Gamora, on the other hand, is considered the most dangerous woman in the galaxy, for a reason. She wins the vast majority of the fights she gets in, rarely even taking a hit. In fact, it seems that the only time she really actually gets beat up is when she's not really trying to win. She takes her greatest hits trying to escape and evade, but in the middle of an actual melee, she is pretty formidable. So much so that it is safe to give her 4 points for being an expert fighter. Drax is pretty good with his knives, and he's definitely pulling off moves that are practiced. That guy has definitely received training. And being that he's been fighting his whole life, he's built up experience too. So he'll be given 2.5 points for being an experienced, trained fighter. Mantis, again, is not much of a fighter. Like we said, she's in the battle at the end of Endgame, and she lives through it. She doesn't really add much to any fight that she is in the physical fighting department. Being that she's willing to throw down when it matters, it's safe to say that she can fight if her life depends on it. So she'll get 0.5 points. So the group's definitely going to be relying on Gamora's fighting prowess in this, and collectively will get a 3.38 as their combined score, meaning that as a group, they're a group of highly trained fighters. Now before, we gave Thanos 6 points for his invulnerability, meaning that he had super invulnerability. That's the ability to withstand a train impact, and certainly he could do that repeatedly. We didn't know whether or not he could actually withstand a nuclear detonation. However, this time around, it becomes more clear. He's definitely using the stones a lot more. And between the Reality Stone's ability to shift and alter the real world, the Space Stone's ability to move objects and matter through space, and the Power Stone's ability to increase his own physical power, as well as at least 2 of the 3 of these stones being able to create barriers, it's safe to say that we can increase that to 7 points and give him Limitless Invulnerability, or that is, the ability to withstand a nuclear detonation at its apex. Like I said before, Star-Lord takes some serious beatings. I mean, in some cases, he's wearing this mask, which might be offering him more protection. I don't really know what his clothes are made out of to know whether those are advanced or not, but he's definitely taking hits that humans should not take and get up from. Now, does he take anything as hard as a vehicular impact? Hard to say. I'm gonna say that it doesn't appear so. So whether it's through clothing or his natural physical prowess, he is getting enhanced resistance for full 4 points. Gamora, on the other hand, is taking, stupid hits. I think it's very clear from certain hits that she takes, here, here, that she's able to withstand a vehicular impact. Maybe more, but we can at least safely give her 5 points for having superhuman invulnerability. Drax, he's right there in more. I mean, bouncing through the trees like he does here, is that a vehicular impact? Is that a train impact? What kind of impact is he even taking?
That was awesome!
It's hard to say in a lot of cases. When somebody goes flying, sometimes it's hard to say how hard they were hit, especially if you don't have an accurate measurement of how far they went. But it's safe to give him 5.5 points for having high levels of superhuman invulnerability, because we know he can withstand a vehicular impact, and probably then some. Mantis, again, it's hard to say. She got hit by this.
Mantis! Look out!
Most of the other hits she takes are not really hits to speak of. If she's wearing clothing, she'd at least get some protection from that. Being that her hard head withstood this, we could almost give her more. So we'll level out and give her 1.5 points for having some protection, almost minor damage resistance. So again, leaning on Drax's invulnerability, they're going to collectively get 5.38 points in this instance, for as a group having superhuman invulnerability. When it comes to the experience bonus, once again, Thanos is going to take this one. Even their collective group experience won't come close to trumping his over 1,000 years of experience. As far as enemy weapons, again, Thanos isn't really utilizing weapons here. However, the Guardians are. So he's going to get docked a point for having to contend with their weapons. And that seems fair anyway, because this weapon was able to stab Thanos right through the throat. I know it was an illusion, but he was creating a realistic illusion. Something that Gamora would have to believe. So Gamora thought that that sword that she was carrying was strong enough to pierce Thanos' flesh. So we have to assume that it was. In both cases, they're going to be dealing with the enemies having powers that need to be overcome. So they're each going to get a -2 score along the way. And neither one of them is bringing something that's considered a unique weakness to the other. Unless you consider the ability to bend reality uniquely weak to any of these 4 people, as opposed to anybody else. All right, let's see how it goes. All in all, Thanos is going to come out with an average hero score of 4.98, while the Guardian team of Star-Lord, Gamora, Drax, and Mantis comes out with a score of 3.86. Meaning that in this confrontation, there was a 78% likelihood that Thanos comes out the victor. And yeah, that means that the Guardians, they had a 22% chance of winning, but that means things would have had to have gone differently. Maybe if Gamora had listened to Star-Lord and gone right, things could have been different.
I told you to go right.
So once again, it seems that the world, as demonstrated in the MCU, gets it right in this conflict, and Thanos is the winner. Thanks everyone for checking in with this episode of the Combat Meter. If you want to check out anything else in the Combat Meter, you can see it right here, as well as some of our other fun videos over here. Thanks, and keep fighting the good fight.